What the hell is up, everybody? Louis back here again for an exciting, violent fight night. UFC San Antonio. Again, at the bantamweight division, 135. You got a very important, a very exciting, a very potentially violent matchup. Number 3, Marlon Cheeto Vera taking on number 5, Corey the Sandman Sandhagen. Aljo and Henry are going to fight in May. Marab just destroyed Peter Yan. Bantamweight is very interesting right now. Is this for a title shot? I don't know, because you still got Sean O'Malley waiting in the wings. But whoever wins this is going to get something big at bantamweight. And the bantamweight puzzle just keeps on moving. And then at the pay-per-view, you got Adrian Yanez taking on Rob Font. So each guy really wants to get a win here so they can get back in the title picture. Corey to get back in the title picture, Marlon to go for his first title shot. Should be very exciting, very violent. Co-main event, the return of HOLM at bantamweight. Should be fun, you know, just kind of a legend. Then the feature fight at 145 pounds, men's featherweight. Nate the Train Landwehr returning back in action. Nate the Train is back in the UFC, taking on Austin Lingo. Should be a fun matchup. Should be pretty violent as well. Now, the one I'm most interested in is the second fight on the main card at flyweight. Alex Perez taking on Manel Starboy Cop. This is a big fight. Alex Perez, been off for a long time, just got ran over by Alex Pantoja, trying to get back into the title mix. And Manel Cop, big risen prospect, lost a couple fights. Now he's on an insane win streak, and if he can beat Alex Perez, he's going to be your next title contender at flyweight. The next guy to look out for. So, I'm really excited. 11 fights. I think that's the perfect amount of fights. Let's get right into it here. First fight of the night at 125 pounds, men's flyweight. 3 flyweight fights tonight. You got Victor Altamirano taking on Vinicius Salvador. Altamirano took on Daniel Da Silva his last fight in the UFC. First round, he blitzes with the 1-2, but he misses the head kick. And then he gets dropped with the right cross, kind of out of nowhere. Happens. But then he's retreating and he eats a blitz and a back fist. Then he eats some 1-2s and a knee in the clinch. But then he's able to reset and he rips the body. And he lands a knee, which drops him, knee to the stomach, drops him. Then he lands some elbows in full guard and just pounds away and gets a TKO inside of 1 round. That's how the flyweights do it. Vinicius Salvador, he took on Shannon Ross. This was in Dana White's Contender Series. He's making his UFC debut on this card. In the first round, he stalks with the lunge left hooks, and he cuts off the cage. He lands a jump knee, and then he drops him with the left hook, and then he lands a flurry of hooks, rips the body also. Then he eats some overhands when he's stalking, just kind of letting his guard down. But then he gets pressed to the cage, and then he's able to drop him with the right hook on the back foot. Pretty impressive. Got a lot of power there. Then in the second round, you can tell his output diminishes greatly. But then he eats some body kicks standing at range, and then he wings some overhands in the pocket, kind of wild, kind of sloppy. And then he eats some short hooks in return. Then he eats some crosses on the fence, but he has his hands down, but then he lands a right uppercut and he rocks him. And then he gets the knockout with a vicious right hook. So, yeah, it should be a violent fight. Vinicius Salvador, minus 115. Victor Altamirano, minus 105. I really don't know. I don't know, dude. I'm going to go with the Dana White Contender Series curse, I guess. It's about even money, so I just think they're both really going to scrap. Vinicius seems like he has trouble going on in the later rounds, but Victor, not super used to going to the later rounds. So, yeah, it's really a coin flip here, and I'm just going to prefer the guy with the UFC experience. I don't know if that's the best way to go, but, yeah. I'm going to go with Victor Altamirano, but it's a flyweight fight, so the whole fight to go under 1.5 rounds, plus 145, not a bad deal. So we'll lock that in. It's a coin flip, and if I get it wrong, I get it wrong. But Victor Altamirano, I like that one. Actually, this one got canceled. So second fight of the night on the prelims at 125 pounds, again, men's flyweight. You got CJ Vergara taking on Daniel Da Silva. CJ Vergara, he last took on Tatsuro Taira, the flyweight prospect nobody talks about. But in the first round, he eats some hooks when he's stalking, gets some out returned off of a step-in jab, just oversteps, and he gets put in side control, but he's able to buck him off when he goes for mount. And then he's able to get up to his feet, so that was good. Doesn't accept the bottom position. But then he gets pressed with the 1-2, and then he gets back tripped off the fence, but then he gets the head and arm sweep right at the end there. Doesn't do much with it. There's about 30 seconds left. Then in the second round, he lands some counter left hooks, but he oversteps swinging his hook, and he gets taken down with a single off of the fence, and he gives up his back, and then he gets submitted with the armbar transition. That Tatsuro is very crafty. So, but, put up a decent fight, and he has some defense on the ground at least. Daniel Da Silva took on Victor Altamirano his last fight. We just talked about that. I'm just going to go from his perspective. In the first round, he eats a step in short left and a blitz, but then he backs out of the head kick range, and he drops him with the right cross. And he chases him and lands a back fist. But then when they reset, he eats a hook to the body and a knee and then gets TKO'd out of nowhere. So Daniel Da Silva is first round or bust definition type of guy. And then before that, he took on Francisco Figueiredo. Yeah, Figueiredo's brother. Yeah, and he just put himself in a bad position to get submitted. And that's not the type of guy you want to just, he should have beat him. And he just was messing around in the submission game and just gave Francisco the win, basically. So, not really good ring IQ either. Daniel Da Silva plus 215, CJ Vergara minus 255. He did get smashed by Tatsuro, but at least he's in there with good competition. And I just can't trust Daniel Da Silva. He is plus 215. Anything could happen at flyweight, but I think the first half of the first round, Daniel Da Silva is going to fall off a cliff. I think CJ Vergara's got better fundamentals. He's got a better game to go 3 rounds. I'm going to pick with that. I don't think it's going to go 3 rounds. But then the whole fight to go under 1.5 rounds, minus 195, a little bit pricey, but, let's stick with the unders. But I'm going to go with CJ Vergara here. We'll see what happens. 2 tough ones. Flyweights are wild. Third fight of the night, 170 pounds, men's welterweight. You got Trevin Giles taking on Preston Parsons. Trevin Giles took on Louis Koske his last fight. In the first round, he stalks to the cage, but then he gets blitzed, but then he circles away from danger. Not much happened at all. Then in the second round, he's pulling him in. He lands a right cross. Then he lands some lunge right crosses, but then he eats some counter jabs in return. He oversteps. He's able to duck the hook, and he gets around his back standing. Can't really do anything with it, though. Then in the third round, he gets taken down with a double at range and put right into half guard. Doesn't take a lot of damage, but he doesn't really make a lot of attempts to get up. But then he's able to reverse off of the headlock attempt, and he gets around his back at the end of the round. Nothing happens in his whole fight, so pretty much. I watched it. And then Preston Parsons, he took on Evan Elder his last fight. In the first round, he gets taken down off a back fist attempt, but then he's able to swim him off of his back. And then he's able to rock him with the counter left hook in the pocket, so he likes to scrap. Then he jabs, level changes, and then he gets a double leg takedown into an arm triangle attempt. So really good way to turn that first round around there. Then in the second round, he chases him with the right cross, shoots a double leg, gets a double leg, but back on it, can't hold him down long. But then he backs out of the hook range, and he gets a jab to a double right into full mount, lands some nice grounded pound. He takes his back, but he gets reversed. But then he's able to utilize overhook sweep, and he's able to regain the arm triangle attempt. But then he gets reversed again. So just a scramble fest, but at least he's moving down there and, showing some submission game. Then in the third round, his double attempt gets stuffed. He shoots a little too far out, but then he circles and he lands some counter left hooks, and then he lands right crosses, but then he eats uppercut in return. He's getting a little too overzealous, and he gets taken out the double, but he uses the overhook to sweep into full mount and ends the round on top in full mount in a dominant position. Can't ask for too much more. Preston Parsons, minus 110. Trevin Giles, minus 110. Even money, flip a coin. I'm going to go with Preston Parsons. Trevin Giles just does not have enough output for me. I think Preston Parsons will be able to take him down, maybe land some damage on him. Yeah, and it's even a money fight. Trevin Giles basically did nothing his last fight, did very little. I think Parsons is going to take the action to him. He's going to press him. I think Giles is going to succumb to the pressure, and I think his cardio is going to get checked. I'm going to go with Preston Parsons here. Co-main event of the prelims at 145 featherweight, Steven Peterson taking on Lucas Alexander. Both guys looking to get back on track here. Steven Peterson took on Julian Erosa his last fight, who kind of had a streak of his own until it got ended. But in the first round, he circles, and he lands some leg kicks, but he eats some hooks to the body. He gets pressure to the fence, but he needs some right crosses and the pocket exchanges. But then he eats some long hooks going back and forth in that firefight. In the second round, he lands overhand right whenever he gets pressed towards him. But then he's able to rock him with the right cross and a pocket exchange. And then he follows up with a nice flurry, some wild punches, but then he gets dropped with a back fist. He's getting a little reckless there. Kind of sucks he lost it. And then in the third round, he lands some jabs and overhand on a clinch attempt. But then he gets doubled. But he locks up the guillotine. Can't finish it, but he's able to wall walk, get back to his feet. So good defense. Good get up game. But then he lands some clean 1-2s standing at range. Then he eats some jabs and some lead hooks, but then he lands some overhand rights, but then he misses a hook and then he gets doubled toward the end there. So fun competitive scrap. And Julian Erosa kind of went on a little streak there. So yeah, not a bad showing. And then Lucas Alexander, he took on Joe Anderson Brito his last fight. In the first round, he just kind of skirts on the fence and he slips when he throws his head kick. And then he gets put in a backpack and submitted with a rear naked choke. So yeah, I don't know. Bad showing. And then before that, he took on Jacob Kilburn. In the first round, he lands a head kick at range, and then he lands a 1-2 off of his leg kick. But then he stuffs the takedown attempt. But then he gets clinched against the fence for a while. But then he gets doubled off the fence. But then he gets right back up. But then he gives up his back standing. Can't really do too much. Kind of a stalemate. Then the second round, he lands a step in left cross. Then he kind of backs out of range. Then he lands a jab and a leg kick, and just kind of circle, kind of trying to find his range. He lands a head kick at range. And then he lands a body kick and jumps on him, gets a TKO finish. So pretty good showing, pretty good killer instinct from him. He's got power, shots to the body. Lucas Alexander plus 135, Steven Peterson minus 155. Again, I don't know. I just think Steven Peterson has fought the better competition in Julian Erosa. And Lucas Alexander got submitted in like a minute. Now, you might want to go with the underdog, but I just have a feeling Steven Peterson is going to be able to crowd him. He's going to be able to land the harder shots in the pocket. He's going to be able to scrap with them. He's going to be there all 3 rounds. I don't know how long Lucas Alexander will last. So based on longevity, I'm going to go Steven Peterson here. But we'll see. Main event of the prelims, 145 pounds, men's featherweight. The return of Daniel Pineda taking on Tucker Top Gun Lutz. Should be interesting. Pineda, he took on Andre Fili back in 2021. It's been a while ago, so you know he kind of needs a win here. He's on a losing streak. But in the first round, he gets rocked with the 1-2, but then he eats a flurry. But then he's able to clinch him to the fence. He lands some leg kicks, and he looks for some overhand over top of Andre's jabs. But then he eats some head kicks at range, and he gets rocked from there. And then he shoots, but then he gets lat dropped pretty aggressively. And then he gets dropped with the body kick at the end there. And then the second round, he eats some more body kicks at range, but he lands a counter hook in the pocket off of Andre straights. But then there's like an eye poke, and he can't continue. But yeah, he got dropped like a couple times in the first round, all the shots to the body. But he's scrappy, you know. But then Tucker Lutz, he took on Pat Sabatini his last fight. More grappling base, but in the first round, he pressures to the fence, and he lands a 1-2 at range, but then he gets pressed with some overhands. He gets shot against the fence, and he gets taken down with an inside trip on the fence, and he gives up his back, but he's able to defend the rear naked choke, but in a defensive position. Then in the second round, he lands a hook and then a knee to the body, but then he gets double legged after that. But then he gets the underhook to the single leg, but he gets put in a top guillotine, and he gives up his back in sort of a scramble situation. So couldn't come out on top. And then in the third round, he lands some wild hooks, and when he gets pressed, and he's able to defend the single leg, and he gets the double off, completes a double off the fence, and then he keeps the clinch, but he gets reversed, and he gets doubled from there. And then at the end, he just kind of pummels in the clinch. But you know, decent showing from him. Daniel Pineda plus 230, Tucker Lutz minus 275. I'm just gonna go with Tucker Lutz. I don't like that price, but Daniel Pineda's been off for a while. He took a lot of damage in his last fights, and Tucker Lutz, Pat Sabatini's decent guy, like top 20, top 25 guy, and he was hanging in there with him, so yeah, I don't know, I just don't see, I mean, Daniel Pineda might land something huge in the first round, but we're going to hope that it doesn't, and, you know, I think Tucker Lutz will be able to clinch him up and kind of slow him down and drag this fight on to the second and third round, so I'm going to go with Tucker Lutz here, Top Gun, we'll see. First fight on the main card, 185 pounds, men's middleweight. You got Chidi Bang Bang NJOKUANI taking on Albert Duraev. I hope you like violence. There should be some sloppy, bloody violence here. Both guys trying to bounce back off tough losses, try to crawl their way to the top 15 of the division. NJOKUANI took on Gregory Robocop Rodriguez his last fight, so it's a tough one. In the first round, he rocks him with a knee off of a level change, and he, like, busts his face so bad you can see the bone in his head, the skull. So yeah, that was pretty iconic. And then he lands a flurry and some crosses whenever he gets pressed. But he's able to defend the inside trip attempt, and he lands some elbows in the clinch, some nasty elbows. And then he lands a left cross off of Greg's overhand. But then he gets dropped with some right crosses and eats some hooks in the clinch right down the round. Then in the second round, you know, his gas tank's almost on knee. He lands some knees in the clinch, but then he gets walked down with some body shots. And then he gets taken down with the head and arm throw, and he is just completely gassed, and Gregory just tees off with some vicious ground and pound and gets TKO'd. But he had his moments in the first round before that. Then Albert DURAEV, he took on Joaquin Buckley his last fight. In the first round, he walks him down, but he eats a head kick, and he shoots too far out, and Buckley stuffed most of his takedowns. And then he backs out of the blitz from Buckley. He's able to land a head kick, though, so sniper position. But then he gets rocked with some lead hooks, and his double attempt gets stuffed again. Then in the second round, he eats a knee off of his level change, and he's able to duck the hook and complete the double off of the fence, but he's not able to hold Buckley down very long, can't do any damage. Then he gets dropped with the lead left hook standing at range. Then he's able to complete another double off the fence, but he just can't do much with it. And then they stop the fight because his eye is very swollen. So, yeah, just kind of looked a little desperate for those takedowns. Albert DURAEV, plus 130. Chidi NJOKUANI, minus 150. Another tough one. I just feel like Albert DURAEV is too one-dimensional. He's just going to... I mean, he has some head kicks, but... You know, Chidi's going to want to get in there and bang. And if Chidi can stuff a takedown or two, I just think DURAEV's in trouble. I think I could see DURAEV just getting desperate for those takedowns as the fight goes on. Now, Chidi, you don't want it to go too far into the fight, but I just think it'll be some chaos. And I think Chidi could learn from the Greg Rodriguez fight. And, you know, DURAEV he just doesn't have too much to offer other than takedown attempts, and I think Chidi's going to be able to stuff a lot of them. So I'm going to go with Chidi NJOKUANI here. Who knows, but at least it'll be violent. Second fight on the main card, another banger at flyweight, 125 pounds. Alex Perez taking on Manel Starboy KAPE. Big matchup for each guy. I believe KAPE's ranked 9 or something, Perez 6. Something like that, but, you know, Perez trying to claw his way back to a title shot. He got beat by Figueiredo, and Pantoja ran him over. And then KAPE, you know, he's trying to get back on track. Had a couple rough debut fights, but, you know, he might be the guy. He might be the new contender if he wins. So a lot at stake for Manel KAPE here, and Perez trying to keep his spot. Perez took on Alex Pantoja his last fight, and this is like a year and a half layoff since his fight. In the first round, he gets blitzed with hooks, and he kind of clips him on the return with some overhands, but then he gets passed by in the clinch, and he gets his back taken, and rear naked choke backpack situation, submits like a minute 30 into the fight. And then before that, Figgy taps him out with a guillotine pretty fast, and that was years ago. So kind of hard to get a read on Perez here. But then KAPE, he took on David Dvorak his last fight. In the first round, he pressures him to the fence, but he eats some leg kicks for his troubles. But then he lands a lead uppercut, and then he hits him with the back. But his back kick gets caught, and he gets taken down. But he's able to get the Kimura and then get on top and get into sort of a north-south position, really crank that thing upwards. But time ran out, but he had that thing pretty much fully extended. And if there's 10 more seconds, I think he would have got the submission. So, you know, pretty wild way to end that first round. But then in the second round, he stalks him, and he crashes, and he lands some short left and right hooks when he goes into him. Then he lands a step and knee to the body, and then a right hook, which rocks him. But then he drops him with the left hook to the body, and then a right hook to the head. They start ripping the body, lands some right crosses against the fence, really trying to get the finish here, stalking him, walking him down. Then in the third round, he lands some leg kicks in the pocket, then he just kind of leans back out of range whenever Dvorak's throwing at him. Then he lands a 1-2 off of Dvorak's hook, and he just kind of circles and pumps his jab. Kind of slows down in the third round because, you know, he's not going to finish the guy, but he tried. Believe me, he tried a couple times. So very good fight performance from him. Manel KAPE, minus 180. Alex Perez, plus 155. It just seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, Perez might be a whole different person, but he just hasn't been fighting consistently, and he just got ran over by Pantoja, and I think Manel is on a hot streak, and I think Manel is going to be able to hurt him. Perez can throw back some heat in the pocket. I see this fight going short, maybe not even a round. I just think KAPE's going to be more accurate. KAPE's going to hit him with the bigger shots. KAPE's really going to hurt him, but we'll see. Maybe Perez goes for a takedown, but I think KAPE will be able to defend it. The whole fight to go under 2.5 rounds, minus 175. I think under 2.5 rounds is almost guaranteed, so I'm going to go with that. And I'm going to go with Manel here. All right. Third fight on the main card at 125 pounds. Again, women's flyweight. Andrea KGB Lee taking on Macy, the future barber. Should be interesting. Macy's trying to get into the title contention, and Andrea, she had a big win against Cynthia Calvillo, and then tough one against Viviane Araujo, so she's trying to stake her claim in the division, and Macy Barber is trying to use her as a stepping stone to get to the title picture, so I think a lot's on the line for either lady. Andrea Lee took on Viviane Araujo her last fight. In the first round, she drops her right away with the step-in left hook and then a head kick, and then she's able to get the lat drop takedown into half guard, but she's not able to hold her down, and then Viviane gets up and she doubles her off the fence, so kind of lost the momentum there. But then back on the feet, she lands some jabs whenever she gets pressed, but she eats some return jabs and some overhands, and then she gets taken out the double right at the end there. So tough round. I still think she won the round because of all the damage, but she just cannot maintain that pace. Then in the second round, she lands a lead elbow, but then she eats a right hook in return and a hook to the body, and she just dives on a low single way too far out and misses it, and she gives up her back, and then she gets put in an arm triangle where she turns into it. And then she turns again, gives her back again, and eats some ground and pound from the back. So really tough one for her. Might have been a 10-8 round, honestly. Then in the third round, she backs up, starts landing some jabs, but then she gets taken out the double off the fence. Viviane just runs right through her. Then she lands some jabs and some front kicks, but then she gets taken down off of her back kick. Bad IQ move. So I thought the third round was up for grabs there, but Andrea gave her the takedown. So tough performance from her, but she looked really good early on. She hurt her pretty bad. Then Macy Barber took on Jessica Ai her last fight a little while ago. In the first round, she gets clinched to the fence for a while, but then she's able to reverse the position. She lands some elbows. Then in the second round, she lands a dip overhand right, and she pressures forward, but then she gets clinched, but she's able to reverse, gets the over-under position against the fence. They break. She's able to land a head kick, but then she gets taken down with the body lock and a half guard for longer than you'd want her to. But Jessica doesn't really do anything, so she doesn't take any damage. Then in the third round, she lands a step-in head kick and then a jab. But then she oversteps on her jab, and then she gets clinched to the fence, but Jessica's not doing much with it. And then she lands some right crosses and front kicks at range. And then she lands some knees and hooks whenever she gets clinched. But then she lands a front kick and then a lead right hook right at the end there. And puts a decent stamp on it. Pretty solid performance from her. Macy Barber minus 265. Andrea Lee plus 225. I'm going to go with Andrea Lee. Maybe she's past her prime, and, you know, Macy's obviously on the rise. But Andrea Lee hits really hard, and I think this is a classic spot where you got a grizzled veteran who's been there, done that, fought some of the best women in the division. She's a big underdog. And Macy Barber, you know, she took out Jessica Ai. Jessica Ai was on her way out, and she's a big favorite. And I just don't like that. And I still remember when she should have lost to Miranda Maverick. I just really don't think she's ready, but honestly, if Macy can outwork her in the clinch and just land some shots in the clinch for 3 rounds, I could see her getting it done. But for the price, I'm going to go with Andrea Lee here. I think she just hurts her, and I think she kind of schools her a little bit, honestly. The feature fight of the evening at 145 pounds, men's featherweight, Nate the Train Landwehr in the UFC, taking on Austin Lingo. Been waiting this man's return for a while. Should be a fun one. Should be a bloodbath. Some stupid stuff was probably going to happen, but I'm excited for it. Nate Landwehr took on David Onama his last fight in UFC San Diego. And in the first round, he lands some leg kicks and a right cross, but then he eats a jab in return. And then he gets dropped with the right hook off of his straight. But he looked like he got knocked out, but he wasn't. He got right back up because he's a zombie, I guess. But then he gets dropped with the overhand, then a left hook at range. Then he's able to reverse the back take. And he's able to get around his back toward the end and kind of gain a decent position. But, you know, he took a lot of damage in that first round. Then the second round, he starts landing some right crosses, and he breaks the lock on the back take, and he's able to get the mat return, and then he pulls him into a darce, and then he's able to use that to get half guard, and David Onama's gas tank is just draining at this point. But then he lands some straight rights at range, and he presses with the clinch and lands some knees in the clinch, but then he passes by, and then he's able to get the anaconda, and then he uses that to get into mount, lands some nasty elbows. Then he lands an uppercut to a double, and he takes his back, lands some vicious ground and pound to end the second round. But David Onama is pretty tough. Then in the third round, he eats a hook in the pocket, but then he pulls the tie plum, lands some knees and some hooks from that position. But then he walks into some crosses. But he's able to back up on the fence, and then he gets into a front headlock position, and then he lands some knees to the head for the front headlock. I like seeing that position out of him. But then he's eats a blitz at the end, and he let him up a couple times in the third round when he could have had him. So kind of stupid, but he wanted to entertain the people, so that's what you got. But yeah, he landed some nasty knees in that clinch there toward the end. Then Austin Lingo took on Luis Saldana his last fight. In the first round, he eats a body kick, but then he stalks with the lead and lands the lead left hook. But then he gets hurt with a body kick, but then he's able to land a step-in left hook on the return. And then he presses forward with some double jabs, lands those. Then in the second round, he breaks off with a clinch attempt, and then he lands an overhand off of his kick. Then he lands a left hook to the body and then a right cross to the head. Nice combo. Then in the third round, he presses with some jabs, but he eats some body kicks in return. But then he drops him with a jab to the body. Then he takes his back and just rides him out for the rest of the third round. Dropped the dude with a jab to the body. Pretty inventive. So pretty good fight from Lingo. Lingo plus 170 and Nate the Train minus 200. Yeah, I just really don't know about this one. Something tells me Nate the Train's going to give this one up. Lingo's good, but he's not like a world beater. I don't think Lingo's going to gas. I think that's the problem. I want to see Nate the Train win, but I think somebody's going to catch up to him one of these days. It's a tough one. I think the takedown's going to be a big factor in this fight. I just really don't know who's going to get them. But I think Lingo will be able to pick his shots a little more. And yeah, man, Nate is just too wild in my opinion. And you know, Nate's been knocked out before, I believe, and he's taken a lot of damage already. So plus 170. I think everybody's expecting Nate the Train to win. I'm going to go with Austin Lingo here to pull the upset. I think he can get it done. If it's a wild, scrappy fight, maybe you favor Landwehr, but Landwehr got dropped pretty hard his last fight. You know, I think Lingo can hurt him with the more precise shots. And the whole fight to go over 2.5, though, plus 100. Decent play. But I'm going to go with Austin Lingo here, pull the upset. On to the co-main event. Don't really think it should be the co-main event. I think KAPE and PEREZ should be the main event, but whatever. Should be a fun fight. 135 pounds, women's bantamweight. Holly, the preacher's daughter, home, taking on Yana Kunitskaya Santos. Santos coming off a layoff. She had a kid. And Holly Holm coming off a tough, close loss to Caitlin Vieira. Looking to get back in the title mix. I think a win by either lady puts them in some type of title talk at 135 because it's a very shallow division. Holly Holm took on Caitlin Vieira her last fight. In the first round, she gets clinched to the fence, but she was able to reverse with the underhook. Gets the seatbelt position, grabbing her other hip. And then she's able to stuff the whizzer kick attempt, but doesn't do a whole lot. In the second round, she lands some leg kicks at range. She forces the clinch, but then she gets whizzer kicked. But then she's able to wall walk up and doesn't take any damage on the ground. And then she shoots like a jab high double to a single. But then she gets caught in a standing rear naked choke, which lost her the round in my opinion. Then in the third round, she lands a blitz to the body, but then she eats a counter hook, but then she's able to get the underhook clinch again to the fence. But then at space, she eats a right cross, but she's able to land another blitz, gets the clinch there. There's 2 more rounds, doesn't really go that well. This is only a 3-round fight. Then Yana Kunitskaya Santos took on Irene Aldana her last fight. Aldana, I guess, is the next title challenger. Who knows? In the first round, she presses with some leg kicks and body kicks, and then she grabs the clinch, but she's not able to secure it. But then she walks into a right cross, and then she eats a hook to the body in the pocket, scrapping back and forth. But then she lands a back fist, and then a plum tie knee to the body. But then she walks right into a check left hook, and she gets dropped from that. Then she eats some ground and pound around her back, and then gets TKO'd. So just not a great performance. She looked like way too ramped up, and just kind of gave away a bad position. Got TKO'd. Yana Kunitskaya Santos plus 205, Holly Holm minus 245. Yeah, I don't like betting women's favorites, but technically this is a high level fight, I guess. Top, maybe, I don't know, not really, but at that division it is. I would say put your money on Yana Kunitskaya Santos. Holly Holm is aging, but Yana's coming off a long layoff after having a kid. Historically, women coming back after having a kid don't win that fight. And I think Holly Holm is going to be able to clinch her up and just kind of beat her up for 3 rounds. I think she can do it. So I'm going to go with Holly Holm. Yes, but I really wouldn't bet on this fight. So on to the main event of the evening. I hope you like high-level violence. I hope you like violent chess matches. That's what this is. At 135 pounds, men's bantamweight, Marlon Cheeto Vera taking on Corey the Sandman Sandhagen. Sandhagen at number 5, Cheeto Vera at number 3. Who knows what's happening with the title, but each guy really wants a win here to still be in those title talks. They might have to sit out. They might get the title shot next. Who knows? Always be ready, though. They're going to scrap. They're going to go at it. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be violent, but it's going to be high level, and I'm excited for it. This fight matters a lot. Cheeto Vera took on Dom Cruz his last fight, UFC San Diego. In the first round, he drops him with left cross off of his kick, but then he gets blitzed. But then he stalks, lands some front kicks to the body, but then eats a body shot and a blitz from Dom, but then he gets doubled off his leg kick at the end, but doesn't take any damage. Then in the second round, he pressures forward, but eats some leg kicks for his troubles, but then he lands a left cross and then a front kick to the face. Very beautiful. But then he eats a front kick, but he backs out of the blitz, but then he eats another body shot by Dom on the exit. Then he lands a counter right cross off of Dom's looping hook, and then he's able to stuff the shot and land a nice front kick from there. And then in the third round, he eats a leg kick and a flurry, but then he lands a short hook in the exchange. And then he drops him with a double jab right cross, looked like it barely even touched him. Cheeto's got the touch of death. But then he eats a 1-2 with his hands down at range, just kind of standing there. Don't know what that was about. But then he's able to stuff the double, and then he lands some hooks, makes Dom pay for it. And then he walks him down with some jabs and some lead hooks, and then he gets shot against the fence, but then he just lands some elbows in the clinch. He's able to defend himself pretty nicely. Then in the fourth round, he just kind of falls back off of his right cross, and then he pressures him forward, and then he drops him with a jab, and then he lands a jab while Dom's circling the fence, and then gets the head kick KO. Sets it up perfectly. Dom's circling that way, and Cheeto feeds him the kick. So just beautiful. So how do you score those rounds? I think Dom was up, I would say 2-1 until the fourth round, but Cheeto gets it done. That's how like the Rob Font fight was. He was losing until he wasn't, and he just got fight-changing power, man. And then Corey Sandhagen took on Song Yadong his last fight. In the first round, he lands a jab, then he clinches him to the fence like right away. Interesting game plan from Corey. But then he lands a step-in jab, but he eats a counter hook for his troubles. He eats some big shots in this fight, and he shoots the single, but then he gets reversed and gives up his back, but then he's able to get out relatively quickly. And then he jabs and lands a kick to the body in the pocket, but then he eats some pressing jabs. Song starts pressing him, and then he eats some lead left hooks from Sadong. Then the second round, he lands some lunge jabs, but then he gets rocked with a counter hook in the pocket, kind of backs away. Then he gets a jab to a double, but he's not able to score from here yet. And then but then he cuts him with a lead elbow, and that's the cut that ultimately ends up stopping the fight. Very nice. It's like a step-in lead elbow. You wouldn't think anything of it, but Corey Sandhagen's elbows are vicious. And then he gets a clinch, and he starts landing some more elbows, opening up that cut. And you can tell he's a smart fighter. He's really targeting this cut at this point. Then in the third round, he eats some hooks off of his jabs, but then he lands some counter elbows in the exchange. And then he feints the jabs, and then he just shoots him to the fence, just kind of wearing him down. And then he lands a jab, and he rips to the body, and then he lands a jump knee toward the end of the round there. Very nice combination. And Song was like a little too slow for it. Then in the fourth round, his body kick gets caught, and he gets swept with the single, but then he's able to get up and he's able to get back to the clinch. But then he gets walked down with some hooks, but then he just starts jabbing and moving and circling around, looking for his shots. And then he jabs the head, and then he rips the body, and then he'll reset. And then he shoots a high single, switches off to a double against the fence, and lands some ground and pound. He rides him out for about a minute. And then after that, they stop the fight because of a cut. Pretty good performance. Song Yadong is dangerous, and Corey took a big risk taking on a dangerous fighter that's ranked lower than him when he didn't have to. So props to him. Great fight. Both these were great fights. Corey Sandhagen minus 155. Marlon Vera plus 135. I just really don't know. Honestly, I think Corey's like the more complete fighter. I think he's more strategical. But Cheeto, he just seems to get better every single fight. He has the touch of death. And Corey's probably going to shoot on Marlon, and I think over time, Marlon's going to be able to catch him with something like a knee, or at least stuff it and make him pay for it. Maybe not in the first round. I feel like Marlon gives up the first round probably, but I think over time, he just gets stronger, and I think toward the end of those rounds, like he's been doing, he's going to catch Corey with something big, even if it's just like a jab that rocks him or a cross or some elbows. Maybe Cheeto lands the elbows. It could be battle the elbows. Who knows? But, I mean, if Corey wins this, I'm not going to be surprised at all. Maybe Corey does complete all his takedowns and just keeps him on the ground for a while and kind of bides his time. But Cheeto's the underdog. I'm going to go with him. I think he's riding a ton of momentum here. You saw Corey take some damage in the Dong fight and in the Peter Yan fight. And I think Marlon's going to be able to find his chin. Or maybe rip the body. Who knows? But plus 135, I'm going to go with Cheeto Vera. The whole fight to go under 4.5 rounds, plus 130. I feel violence. I think that's a good bet. All right, everyone. Thanks for riding with me. I appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe. Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all that stuff. I appreciate it. Leave a comment down below. Let me know how things are going. Give me some advice because I need it. Got to get a winning week this week. But did all my homework, so we should be good. Very fun fight card. Let's see some upsets. Let's see some violence. And let's see some profits. Good luck, everyone.